Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we are continuing the season preview series today as we take a look at the Vancouver Canucks. So, let's take a look at the Canucks in today's video. So, the Canucks last season actually, the expectations were high going into 2021 that the Vancouver Canucks could be a playoff team, maybe even win the North Division. And things fell very, very flat for the Canucks last season. Now, to be fair, they did have a couple of key injuries, guys underperforming from what they'd hoped, Brain Holtby, and the team just wasn't able to get where they needed to. And I'm not just blaming Brain Holtby on this. There was a lot of issues with the Canucks. So they made a lot of changes this summer, and Jim Benning may have taken a little bit of heat this summer from a lot of people, maybe even including myself, for some of the moves he made. But let's see what the Canucks did and if they could get back into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we're going to take a look at the top point producers last season. Brock Boeser, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, Bo Horvat, Niels Höglander, Elias Pettersson, Tyler Myers, Tanner Pearson. All of those guys are going to be back in Vancouver in the fall. So that's the good news. Your top point producers will be back. And then guys start to fall off. Guys like Nate Schmidt, Travis Hamonic, Taylor Mott, Jordy Ben, Alex Edler, Adam Gaudette, and that's where we start to see some departures. So we're going to take a look at some of the guys that the Canucks lost. Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel were all traded to the Arizona Coyotes. So huge cap dump in the bottom six for Vancouver's Jim Benning. And we're going to look and see how he got some of that salary back. And we're getting to that. We're getting there. A couple of other guys they lost. Cole Linde in the expansion draft to the now new expansion rival to the to the Vancouver Canucks, the Seattle Kraken. So Cole Linde, potential top six winger, now in Seattle. Nate Schmidt was traded out to Winnipeg. The Jets actually had a pretty good summer this year. So Nate Schmidt, another kind of a cap dump. And Brain Holtby was bought out of his 1 year left on his contract. He is now a member of the Dallas Stars. And now looking at some of the guys that they brought in, it's a pretty long list. You got Connor Garland and Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming together in a package deal. In that same deal where we saw Eriksson, Beagle, and Roussel go to the Coyotes, Garland and Ekman-Larsson were the key pieces going to Vancouver. And some big cap hits, especially Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They signed Connor Garland to a pretty nice contract, but again, that's still money that was taken away from maybe signing guys like Pettersson and Hughes, and next summer, guys like Brock Boeser. So, interesting moves there by the Canucks, but they did get better in that regard. They also brought in some guys specifically from the Dallas Stars. They brought in Jason Dickinson from the Dallas Stars in a trade. They also brought in from free agency Justin Dowling, who is another former Dallas Stars player, mostly played with the Texas Stars of the AHL. Phil DiGiuseppe comes in from free agency. He spent some time with the New York Rangers. He is now a member, probably going to be of the Utica Comets, but could be called up, kind of like a Justin Dowling. Both those guys could be call-ups during the season. And then on the blue line, Luke Shen and Brad Hunt come in as depth for the Canucks. Luke Shen was with the Vancouver Canucks for a short period of time, a couple years back. He's won a couple cups in Tampa Bay, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I'll go back to Vancouver. So now he's back in the Vancouver area, so back in BC. So we'll see how that works out for him. Again, going to add some veteran presence, both of those guys, Shen and Hunt. And then goaltending. They brought in two goaltenders. Jaro Halak will be the backup behind Thatcher Demko. The Brain Holtby experiment didn't work so well, so they bring in Halak. And the goaltender coach of the Canucks, Jim Benning, actually mentioned, they were looking at other goaltending options, but it seemed like Jaro Halak was the one that the coaching staff there really liked. So they decided to go with Yaroslav Halak, who his time with the Islanders was, he had his moments where he got sent to Bridgeport, came back up, actually put a pretty good run together. So Jaro, I'm happy he's had a good career in Boston, and now he's going to get an opportunity in Vancouver. I think this is good for Jaro. Probably one of his last contracts in the league. He signed a 2-year deal, I think. So I like that deal by the Canucks and for Halak. They also brought in Spencer Martin from the Tampa Bay Lightning in a deal for like a 5th or a 6th round pick. A good deal there. Again, going to add some depth behind Halak and Demko. And again, we're going to see another year of DiPietro developing in Canada in the juniors. So Spencer Martin will be a good bridge gap until then. And a guy for the Tampa Bay Lightning they probably would have lost in waivers. So really not anything crazy there. Looking at the forward lineup, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser. All three of those guys were really good last year as long as they stay healthy. We know Besser has had a past of not being healthy. He was healthy for last season, so a good sign there. But JT Miller missed a couple games with injury, so hopefully he'll be ready to go this year. And then you look at the second line, it's kind of up for grabs on the left side. You got Niels Höglander there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of competition there. Tanner Pearson and Vasily Podkolzin could both be fighting for a spot in that top six. You also got the captain, Bo Horvat, and Connor Garland, the newly acquired pickup. He's probably going to be on that right side with Bo throughout most of this season. That's pretty much the plan there. Now, looking at the bottom six, definitely different with some of those big guys being let go. Eriksson, Virtanen now being gone. A lot of guys, Roussel, Beagle, all those guys being gone. It clears out some room to see maybe some of the young guys jump into the fold, and we will see that. So Tanner Pearson, we've seen his name, nothing new there. Jason Dickinson, one of the newly acquired guys, I think he's a great third-line center. At least that's what they're hoping for. Can put up some points with Tanner Pearson. But also Vasily Podkolzin coming over from Russia. We know he will be in training camp for the Canucks. So Vasily Podkolzin comes in, and I think he will be one of those guys. I think he could get on the third line, but I think the expectation is he wants to play on that second line with Horvat and Garland. But like I said, there is going to be some competition there. Now you look at the bottom six in the fourth line. It's going to be pretty similar to the end of last season. You got Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter, and Matthew Highmore, and I think that's a pretty good fourth line overall. Nothing, jaw dropping or eye popping, but it is a good fourth line. It's just a gritty group, and that's really what they're doing with that fourth line. Now you're looking at the defense. You got Quinn Hughes and Travis Hamonic. Again, barring that, Pettersson and Hughes sign their contracts, Hughes and Hamonic will be the top pair. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers is your second pair. I like both those pairs. A pretty good top four, to be completely honest. But then you're relying on a little bit more depth with your third pair because you got Jack Rathbone and Tucker Pullman, which they signed Tucker Pullman to a decent amount of money. I hope that works out. As long as he can stay healthy, he's put together some pretty good seasons in Winnipeg. So Tucker Pullman could be a nice add there. And a guy like Jack Rathbone, we saw him in spades last season. We'll probably see a little bit more of him this year. But again, he could be on the scratch pad, on the ice, off the ice. He could be a little bit, in and out of the lineup, that kind of guy. Unless he really does well in training camp, which, again, that could happen. But as of right now, he's going to be in and out of the lineup in that bottom pair. Looking at goaltending, Demko and Halak is your starting goaltending tandem, which I do like. And then looking at some of their depth, you got for the forwards, guys like Vasily Podkolzin, already mentioned him. He'll probably be in the lineup. Will Lockwood, Yona Gajkovic, Nick Patan, who they get from Toronto, Sheldon Dries. So not really anything crazy or any big names there besides Podkolzin, which I think he will be in the lineup. And then defense, things do get a little interesting. You have guys like Brady Keeper, Jet Wu, Madison Bowie. We've heard some of those names before. Kyle Burrows, he was actually pretty good with the Islanders in the AHL, probably more of an AHL defenseman. And then still in the goaltending situation, you do have Mikey DiPietro and Spencer Martin. So I think because of the whole pandemic, I think that's pushed DiPietro back a year. And I think DiPietro will be probably the backup next season to Demko. And I think that's really what the goal of that is. And Spencer Martin's just a fourth goaltender, a third goaltender next year. And that's kind of what you're looking at there. But I think Jet Wu is another guy to keep an eye on. And Brady Keeper, maybe to get in with guys like Jack Rathbone for that left side on the third pair. Now, the Canucks do have $10.6 million in cap space, and that's kind of important because they do have to re-sign both Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. So between the both of them, it's $5.3 million, and I don't see that happening. So they got to figure out what they're going to do. They may put some guys like Michael Furland on the LTI. His money comes off the books. That will free them up just a little bit, make it easier for them to sign both of those guys before the beginning of the season. Now, with that said, we have to talk about if the Canucks will make the playoffs here in 2022. And I hesitate saying that they'll make the playoffs. I'm confident that they will be that team, but they could be one of those bubble teams. I think a lot of people, have made the argument that'll be Vancouver, Edmonton, and between Edmonton, Calgary, and LA, they will be fighting it out for that third spot in the Pacific, and potentially even Seattle. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Canucks sit. I do have them making the playoffs this year. I think they've gotten a lot better with Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland for now. I don't know how good Ekman-Larsson's going to be for the future of the Canucks, but as for right now, the veteran leadership he brings, the scoring punch they get from Connor Garland, I think that's a really big hole they filled on the second line. And as long as they could stay healthy, and I think adding Jason Dickinson, seeing Podkolzin come in a year or two of Niels Höglander, I like what the Canucks have done. I just worry about their defensive depth, but other than that, I think they will make the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2022. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you have the Vancouver Canucks making the playoffs in 2022, or do you have them as a lottery team? Let me know your thoughts down below. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.